Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast in a game 2 in a series between Grubby versus Speed here on Shakuras Plateau. Speed spawning as the yellow Zerg on the bottom right hand side of the map. Meanwhile, Grubby spawning on the top left hand side of the map as the green Protoss. This is going to be Protoss versus Zerg once more, and rather curious as to how what's going on in this particular matchup, and how these players played game 1 on the Zelnaga Caverns. Excuse me as I seem to be a little bit tongue-tied. Anyways, yeah, just a little curious on how they played on the Zelnaga Caverns, or in the Zelnaga Caverns, as both players didn't really do much for the first, say, 10 to 14 minutes of the game. Both players just sat back, was able to really macro up. There wasn't a lot of harassment, there wasn't a lot of pressure, and it really came down to who was able to utilize their casters a little bit better, and Grubby in the end using those high Templars able to shut down infestors very cleanly, I must add. And those infestors really didn't get a lot of mileage out. A couple of fungal growths did hit, but it didn't really hit as much as Speed needed to. Now in this game, we'll see what's going to be going down between these players, as Speed once again opting to go for an earlier pool. Now an earlier pool makes a lot of sense on say Zelnaga Caverns, but on a map like Shakuras Plateau, as long as you try to scout out that you are not getting proxied rush, there's nothing wrong with trying to go for hatchery first. We'll see what's going to come down from Grubby, as Grubby now scouting out with this one probe on the bottom, coming into the bottom left-hand side, or is it going to go to the top? It looks like it will be traveling to the top right-hand side of the map first, as the Overlord now positioning itself in a very curious location. We'll see where it's going to be going, as a second Overlord from Speed also moving out as well. Cybernetics Core also coming in. Where is that second pylon? The second pylon is now down here on the low ground. And interesting fact is that Grubby now opened up with a Cybernetics Core first, as opposed to a pylon, a second pylon first. So Grubby will end up being a little bit behind in the economic game, but he will be able to get out his gateway units just a little bit faster. I don't know if you guys were actually aware of this. And wow, what version of the map is this? There are actually backdoor rocks. This is an old MLG version of the map, from what I can recall. So wow, this is wrong SP. Okay. Anyways, wrong starting position. So anyways, the probe now just continuing to move around. You're going to try to escape away. The Zelnaga Caverns down over here, yeah, it does look very different. And this particular map, if Grubby had known that, if I had noticed that this version of the map was being used as opposed to the more standard version of MLG, I would say that Grubby would, if he's practiced this a lot, put gateways down here and then prevented any sort of roach pressure. He then would be able to use these rocks, expand into this location, and then move along the top, expand into this, and then just come down with Colossi with a much larger army. Grubby would have a very easy time if this game does actually go that long. And Overlord now making his way to the top left-hand side. You can see Chrono Boost now on that Warp Gate with a lot of energy still to be had. Grubby can easily get 4 additional gateways now in just a moment. Is he going to go for that? That is a key question. No, now going for a Nexus. So I cannot predict what Grubby is trying to do at all. As the Stalker now getting in, he can see that there is a couple of Spine Crawlers. A Queen now coming into position as well. This Spine Crawler may just get cancelled, as a lot of damage is being had so far, and the Queens are now trying to engage. The Grubby needs to pull back with this with the Stalker. The Stalker, able to force a cancellation. So there was some loss of minerals there, but not very much. And now Grubby going to be getting some additional gateways and that pylon over here. It looks like that pylon is positioned in such a way where it can be destroyed later in order to move out. We are going to be getting a forge there as well, perhaps one more gateway if necessary, as the Stalker now trying to retreat back home. That second Spine Crawler about to be completed. There is no creep tumors linking these bases. And Speed may just be able to take this game. It doesn't look like Grubby knows how to abuse everything on this version of MLG. I believe this version of MLG favored Protoss by a lot. Now, it also explains why this was a full cross spawns, as this version of MLG was always going to be a cross spawn because of the backdoor rocks leading into your opponent's base. Anyways, a couple of Zergans try to make their way up the ramp, quickly getting caught there by 2 force fields and then getting destroyed. You can see Grubby now double training up probes as well. Meanwhile, you can see Speed just training up a lot of drones right now, getting up to 10 drones at a time. And as he queues those up, as he gets a lot of those drones, Speed should be able to macro up a very decent army. He just needs to, at some point, take up a 3rd base. He knows his opponent is already on 2 bases as well. So this is the perfect time to establish up your 3rd base, perhaps set up a hatchery here. But instead, we are going straight into the layer, and that means most likely it will be mass Mutalisk. We are also seeing a robotics facility coming into play. So the robotics facility, the robotics bay, now being added for Colossi. So Colossi should be added in just a moment, as well as we are now getting into the level 1 weapons upgrade. Evolution chambers also being added as well. We'll see if Speed does heed my advice and try to take up a 3rd expansion, as his opponent is already running on 2 bases, 40 drones to 40 probes. A very, very even matchup so far. Once again, though, you see Speed is currently sitting at 52 over 52. He is currently supply blocking himself just a little bit, unable to drone up any further. He has now started the weapons and armor upgrades, interestingly enough. So it may be a lot of Zerglings. So this is starting to look more like Zergling Mutaling, but we are now going into an infestation pit instead. So I am still rather curious as to what Speed is really trying to do at this point, as Colossi are now being added to the mix. You can see a Spine Crawler back over here. Creep Tumors are being spread across. Not a very, very good use of these Creep Tumors. 1 or 2 more Creep Tumors would probably be best. Speed, however, only running off of 2 Queens, doesn't have any energy to spare, as he wants to make sure to continue to spawn larva back at home. In comes an Overseer. The Overseer does not have the movement speed upgrade, but he will scout out the robotics bay and see this one, the robotics facility training up a Colossi there. And now you can see the Overseer is deciding to back off after getting a little bit of scouting information. The Zerglings attempting to take down these rocks as well, as you're going to see Spine Crawlers here, and 2 Spine Crawlers, is it 2? Yeah, the other Spine Crawler hidden underneath hidden right behind that Overlord there. So yeah, there are going to be 2 Spine Crawlers, as the Overseer once again does another flyby and able to contaminate the robotics facility, delaying the training of that one Colossi even further. Grubby now continuing to train up more and more units. You can see that he has a lot of energy on his Nexus. He can perhaps try to chrono boost out more units, as we are now seeing Colossi, Sentries, and Stalkers make their way into the field. There are a fair number of Zerglings. These rocks have yet to be destroyed, and now the Zerglings are going to catch sight as Grubby now making his way through the center portion of the map. He has a rather large army in terms of gas, as a 2nd Colossi should be joining the party in just a moment. And as soon as 2 Colossi are ready to go, I think Grubby will have the opportunity to try to attack and try to just overwhelm Speed's position. Speed does have a couple infestors, but his Neuroparasite is nowhere near ready nowhere near ready to take control of these Colossi just quite yet. We are also getting the Gravitic boosters. I always forget, is that movement speed upgrade for observers or warp prisms? I would assume that it is for observers, as I can't imagine warp prism play at this time. Overseer is still hiding off over here to the top right. Zerglings still swarming around in the center. You can see infestors are now trying to get in position as well. There is Burrow, and as soon as we see an observer or 2, it may be a little bit more of a telltale sign. A Zergling going after a Zealot, quickly going to get destroyed there. But the Zerglings are upgraded 1-1, so those Zerglings, not yet Cracklings, should be able to deal a lot of damage, as now Grubby comes into the 3rd base and sees essentially that it is empty. So Grubby knows that his opponent has a decent sized army, but Grubby can now expand right behind this and get into a very, very favorable position as well, expanding into this location here. But there is this hatchery on the center location here, the happy face with the yellow nose, if you look at the minimap, as we are now seeing Colossi and now a Phoenix being added as well. The Phoenix trying to keep track, and there are a lot of Colossi there. A lot of infestors there. Those infestors are currently being revealed though, and that would have been very, very bad. The 2nd Phoenix now flying forward once again. Gonna keep track of this army. Army combinations 3275 versus 3175. Still very even. 45 versus 53. It looks like a changeling was in the field, but it just got destroyed. I think that's what's left of the changeling. No, maybe not. Anyways, Zealots are in position. Stalkers are in position as well, as another base has been established. We can see Zerglings trying to take down these backdoor rocks as another expansion being held up over here by Speed. The Phoenix will, I believe, spot that hatchery in time, as it is currently coming into play, as we are now going into Psy Storm as well. We see a fair amount of infestors. Those infestors are going to be absolutely brutal if they can land those fungal growths, or perhaps even get a neuroparasite onto a High Templar. Oh, feedback straight onto an infestor already. It looks like there's a fungal growth, and now down goes that one particular observer there. So the observer has now been destroyed by a lucky fungal growth, most likely, as a Zergling still tearing through these backdoor rocks. Drones are now down over here. It looks like Warp Prism is now warping in some Zealots. The Zealots are in position over here. Where are they going to run to? Grubby can easily get a lot of drone kills as infestors are still being added up. Zergling's now trying to run away from those Zealots here, but Grubby looks like he is now going to be moving out with this large number of Zealots, and the Zealots do have charge, so they're going to run straight in and get a lot of damage onto these drones. And now a Queen desperately in trouble. You can see the units are desperately now running away from the center, but there is only one real way to get through the center portion of the map. 3 Colossi now being added as well. The Zealots are going to get surrounded rather easily, but Zealots now making their way down to the 6 o'clock expansion location. Drone's going to get destroyed. You can see drone after drone now falling, but a nice burrow in time to try to save it, as the Zerglings are now going to be swarming in and taking down the rest of these Zealots. So the Zealots have been destroyed, as Speed now continue to able to mine freely once again. Colossi are now pushing in through the center. The infestors need to get off some critical key fungal growths. Will they be able to right now, as there is just a mass number of infestors and Zerglings? A drone trying to sneak through a force field, unable to do so, as you can see an infestor hiding off over here. Now, really, Speed still doesn't know what's really going on going inside of his opponent's base, as the infestors are trying to push their way through. A fungal growth does land, as another fungal growth hitting all of these Zealots. It looks like a continual fungal growth, perhaps. And a continual fungal growth is always a very deadly proposition, as Speed, barely able to save any of his infestors. There's many of those infestors are now low hit point infestors. Have to be very careful. They do not burrow and regenerate hit points similar to Archons, or regenerate hit points nearly as quickly as Archons. This one, poor Zealot, able to escape at 22 hit points, and now perhaps run back once again. The Roaches do have level 2 armor upgrades. Grubby, still with a much larger army, really needs to capitalize on this, or he is going to be kicking himself, and now perhaps trying to walk up that ramp. It looks like he will not be able to do so, and the production tab now showing even more Roaches being trained. High Templar, Stalkers, Sentries, Colossi. The Colossi now moving into that third base over here. You can see that Grubby already established his third base as well. It looks like it is fully operational with a lot of probes back there. Spire finally being added, but that is no good. Perhaps a little bit too little, too late in order to get those necessary corruptors. More feedback coming in. More infestors. There's a Neuroparasite, and now one Colossi turning on his opponents. But those force fields are bringing that one infestor ever so close. And now you can see that the rest of these infestors need to back off once again. Zergling's now trying to come in. It looks like, another feedback on a rather low hit point infestor, or a high hit point infestor, now losing 75 energy. And there is the GG once again. So Grubby takes game 2 in this series. Stay tuned for game 3.